Good afternoon. I think we are going to start. Um, this is like I have good news and bad news. What do you want first? The good news is that we have an excellent and fantastic panel with examples from all over the world, and I think it will be a very rich discussion. The bad news is that we have less time than we thought, and then we will not be able to use. We have to finish at 5:30. Because we are running behind. So we're sorry, everybody. Even the organizers are very sorry about that, but that is what it is. There is a reception at 6, and we will need to finish earlier than we thought. So apologies for that. So that's why I want to start and to welcome everybody to this panel that we've organized with the theme of the role of art in the struggle for justice. There is simultaneous interpretation to English, Arabic, and French, I believe, and Spanish, and English, French, and Arabic. I hope everybody can. Can we get the Arabic translation, please? There should be. It's working now? Okay, good. Thank you. So we have English. En español no hay. We have English, Arabic. Yeah. I don't know. Shall we? Okay. Is the Arabic translation working? They say there, yes, choose the channel. Let's make sure that you get the channel. Okay, great. So thank you. So we are choosing this theme of the role of art in the struggle for justice. My name is Fernando TRAVESI. I work for the ICTJ, International Center for Transitional Justice. And we wanted with the partners organizations that will come with us today, we wanted to speak about what is the role of the art when we are fighting for justice in the search of the missing and the disappeared, and also demanding justice, and also creating awareness and sensitizing general audiences. Let me say very quickly before we start that in our work around the world, we've seen that for many victims and for many stakeholders, art is a safe place when it comes to express and make demands in a different way. And art becomes a safe place where people come together and they work through very hard and difficult issues. And sometimes by the creativity, and there is some measure of healing and even some measure of justice, and they boost their voices and demands. So we have seen that projects that are related to art and creativity, they can have an immense impact, accomplishing one or some of the following: breaking the silence about the past violence through truth-telling of previously untold or unknown stories. They can also provide victims with an alternative form of expression that is personal and intimate. They can sensitize societies on issues related to victims, families, past violence, justice, and reform. They can galvanize people to challenge authorities and demand justice and change. And they are useful also to preserve memory and to foster individual and collective reckoning and healing. So we have an incredible panel today that will show us this with many examples from all over the world. We have Syrian colleagues, we have colleagues from the Gambia, from Lebanon, from Mexico, and also from South Asia. And we have films, we have exhibitions, and we have also books. And we could have chosen music or theater or installations, as well as many other forms in which memorialization can also take place. But without further ado, we're going to start with a screening of a very short animation movie that should be ready. And if we are ready, we can start with that. Shall we go with the movie, please?
ماما لقيتي لبابا؟
لا لسه حبيباتي، بس بكرة بكمل.
We have two representatives here with us that they are going to explain everything about it. Mahmoud Aswad is the CEO of Lawyers and Doctors for Human Rights, and then Ahmad Mohammed works as Head of Monitoring and Documentation Department of the Syrian Institute of Justice. Mahmoud, I'm going to start with you, and I'm going to ask you, your organizations have been working for many years together, this Bridges of Truth coalition of organizations, on different topics. Why did you choose the issue of enforced disappearance and detainees as one of the topics that you wanted all to work together?
شكرا Fernando. I will speak in Arabic. حقيقة فرناندو، موضوع المفقودين في سوريا أو المختفين قسرا، أنا يعني كلمة مفقودين حقيقة لا تعبر عن الحقيقة اللي هو فقدان نتيجة
the forced
اعتقال
disappeared people
تعسفي
because
وإخفاء مقصود من
expression
قبل السلطات أو الجهات
disappeared
التي
does not
خطفت
cover the
وأخفت
reality. It
أحبابنا
is
وأهلنا.
the
تم
result
اختيار هذا الموضوع
and part of
بسبب
the authorities
اللقطة
who have
الأخيرة اللي شفتوها بالفيديو،
kidnapped these
بسبب
people who are our
نظرة
loved ones.
الأطفال،
We
نظرة
have chosen
الأهالي
this subject
بانتظار
matter.
أحبائهم. عملية الفقدان بدون
But the
معرفة
last
المصير أمر صعب على
sequence
الأهالي،
of the short
صعب على
film
كل
of
من
the family
فقد
members waiting for the loved ones
أحبابه، صعب على كل من
without
ذاق طعمة
knowing their
الفراق
fate.
اللي كان غير مجهز له، اللي ما غير
For
معروف
anyone who has
المصير.
lost a loved
لا
one,
معروف مين الجهة اللي أخذتك. لاحظ أنت الفيديو هو عبارة
anyone
عن
who
تجسيد
has
حقيقي للواقع
experienced,
اللي قامت في عملية الإخفاء جهات غير
whoever
معروفة
has kidnapped that
مكانها،
person,
لباس مدني. معظم العمليات الاعتقال بتكون على حواجز، بتكون
and that should not
بأماكن،
obscure this
فهي
reality. Some
حالة شائعة
parts
عند كل
where
العوائل السوري وغير السوري حتى. بس نحن
largely
اليوم نحكي عن
unknown to the
السوريين
people who were
لأنه الإخفاء
kidnapped,
القسري كان موجود
and most
في
of
سوريا من
these
قبل السلطات ومن
disappearances
قبل بعض
happen
الجهات
on
الأخرى اللي كانت
checkpoints.
مسيطرة في سوريا.
And
فالاختيار لأنه
when
في مئات الآلاف من العوائل
it comes
تأثرت،
to Syria,
في
enforced
مئات
disappearances is a
الآلاف من
phenomenon
الناس
that
أصبحت
used to
مصيرها
exist. It was
الحياتي
performed by the
الاقتصادي
authorities,
المستقبلي
and we chose
كله
this subject matter. We have
تأثر في عملية
hundreds of
الفقدان.
thousands of people who are affected,
الاستمرار في الحياة أصبح صعب، فنحن من واجبنا ومن من
and
من
their
من الواجب علينا
future, their
كمؤسسات مجتمع مدني،
economy is
مؤسسات
deeply impacted by the
الضحايا
disappearances.
وعوائل
To
الضحايا،
keep on living
إنه
after this is
وفاء
very
للناس
hard,
اللي تم فقدانهم،
and
ووفاء
our
للأهالي اللي عم
responsibility
بيعانوا
as civil
الأمرين نتيجة
society, as
الفقدان.
family
واجبنا إنه
of
نحن
these
نستمر
victims,
ونشير ونناصر لقضية المفقودين،
and paying
لإيجاد
homage
مصيرهم،
to
لإخراج
these people who
المعتقلين.
disappeared and their suffering families.
من
We
الجيد إنه
have the
سقط النظام
duty
وفتحت السجون، ولكن
to
اكتشفنا للأسف
do this
أعداد
work in
كبيرة ممن
favor
كنا
of the
نعتقد أنه
disappeared and
موجودين
the
بالسجون حاليا
detainees.
هن فقدوا أرواحهم، والآن نبحث عن مصيرهم.
Something that was happening, that was going on in Syria, and now the reality has been unveiled. And it's true that many of these people who were disappeared, they died, and we're still looking for them.
Make a few questions because we don't have a lot of time. So I know, why did you as a group decided to tell this story with a movie? Why? I know there was a report before, but why was this a movie? What thinking make you to want to communicate this through a movie, and a movie like the one we watched?
شكرا فرناندو والسادة الحضور، أهلا وسهلا فيكم. بصراحة الإيفنت هو فرصة كمان لحتى مثل ما شفتوا بعنوان الفيلم بكرة بنكفي، هو فرصة كمان لنحن نكفي جهود عائلات الضحايا وتسليط
We
الضوء
wanted
على القضية.
an opportunity, as you have seen.
فرناندو
We,
صراحة
we will not
مجموعة جسور
stop.
الحقيقة
We wanted to prove that we
بالتعاون مع
will
ال ICTJ.
continue, and it's the efforts
قررنا
of the families
نستخدم
of these
شيء
victims that are
شيء
ongoing
معروف بقضية
and will
المعتقلين
not be
سوريا، على عكس
stopped.
الشيء اللي نحن
We
دائما
at our
شايفينه بالأنمي
organization,
والتقليد.
Bridges for
وتم
Truth,
استخدام الانيميشن. هو فكرة الانيميشن، نحن مثل ما شفنا الفيلم مبني على قصة واقعية، هو كان فرصة حتى فينا
mirrors
نحن
what was being done in
نحكي
the
هوية
past.
الشهود الحقيقيين. يعني
We
نحن
chose
الانيميشن
animation,
كان في له
but are
flexibility
based on
كبير، انه
entirely
هو
true
بيساعدنا عشان نحن
events,
نخفي هوية
and that
الناس
has given us the opportunity
الشهود اللي
through
اخذنا شهاداتهم. هو بنفس
animation
الوقت
of not
من خلال
revealing
الانيميشن
the
قادر يصل
victims'
اكبر طبقة من
identities, who are the
المجتمعات، وخاصة
true main characters
فئات
of the story,
متنوعة
as
مثل
well as
الشباب، مثل صناع
witnesses.
القرار، مثل الاشخاص المؤثرين.
Through animation, we can tackle the biggest amount of time of stories of young people, decision makers, and people who have an influence around the world.
As I said, there was a report on this, that the movie is based on the stories that you collected working with families with victims. I know you have member of your family also disappeared. So what were the key findings of that field work, working with family, getting their experiences, and producing the report and the movie? What were the key findings that you would like to highlight?
شكرا فرناندو. موضوع الفيديو مثل ما ذكر زميلي أحمد، هو مأخوذ من قصص واقعية من معاناة أهالي.
Thank you, Fernando. As my colleague Ahmad said, these all comes from true suffering of certain families. We based ourselves on the work of the organization Bridges for Truth in a style and a way of working. We base ourselves on the direct testimony of families. We truly belong to the world of victims. We're talking about stories that are not far off, distant stories. They're very close to our suffering, the suffering of families. When we now work with families in order to help them, we see that movies like ours reflect true suffering in trying to capture the truth. To find this security, because what we find is that most of the families who have suffered through this have lost hope, are not hopeful in the future. They cannot see clearly the direction for the family. What's going to happen to the children? What does the future look like? So all of us here have freedom to move around. We can go more or less where we want. And what we wanted to be a testimony for is the hardship that these people have gone through. And this throughout our movie is something that appeals to the hearts of these families, the people who see, be it Syrians, foreigners, Arabs, Brits, in any nationality, in any language. We can see that art is a deeply touching language that can reflect clearly the suffering of Syrian in this particular case. So it's not just about bearing witness to sadness. It's about bearing witness to the fact that Syrians are not accepting the status quo and to persisting efforts to locate these disappeared people. Mothers are tired of looking for the loved ones, women, children. So what we try to do here is to reflect all these elements to present them in front of international society concerning people who've disappeared and make this important as it is. Everything that's going on in Syria, this relationship throughout the sea, internal displacement, refugee camps, the cause for our existence, the fear that we have. I am one of the people who have had cases of disappearances in Syria in my own family.
The movie has something that sounds universal, perhaps because it doesn't have language. And that's my last question for you, Ahmad, on the little time we have left. This movie has gone through different festivals of human rights documentary festivals and has collected awards in South Korea, in the United States, in Europe, and that perhaps endures that universality. What do you think it's been the impact of the movie, or are you satisfied with the impact that you are having, or how you are using the movie, and what do you think you are achieving that is different from before?
يعني حقيقة فرناندو الفيلم هو بس يعني فيديو لا هو
Well, truly, Fernando,
من شيء واقع عم يعيشه المجتمع
this animation is not just a video, it's something else. It reflects a reality that Syrian society is suffering, meaning a situation that is actually happening in other countries on the 21st century. It's not just a Syrian issue. So through the animation, we try to offer this report that's actually a medium to strengthen the support for all these people who are fighting against the disappearances. So we gathered maybe 10, 12 prizes internationally. So indeed, the video has traveled very well. And for instance, the Dutch government took the initiative to show this film in schools as well as other Arab and foreign countries. So we have seen it had quite an impact. So it has reached many people. And I believe this is something intensely positive, and it can be a really interesting encouragement to fight against enforced disappearances.
Now we're speaking about that, but the panel wants to look at very different examples from all over the world. So thank you very much. Thank you very much. Really beautiful work. Beautiful work. And then I would like to invite to come to the panel to Sirra and NDOW from Gambia, and also Yasasmin KAVIRATNE from South Asia. They are going to please come here. While our technical people get all things together, we are going to look at second part of this panel to exhibition projects that are led by these two organizations in the Gambia and South Asia on a regional component that we will learn now more. As I said, Sirra and NDOW, if I pronounce that correctly, is the Gambia country director of ANEKED, and she has led a project that is called the Memory House, and I believe we have a short clip to start the conversation, and then fingers crossed. Here we go.
A museum is a place where history remains alive, no matter the shape or size of it. A place where the impact of the past is experienced in the present. Memory House is that place. A permanent memorial center, the first of its kind in the Gambia, designed and implemented by victims of human rights violations. It is a place where we recognize that in order to heal, we must acknowledge our painful past and be at peace with it. At Memory House, we shed light on the darkness that gloomed over the Gambia between July 1994 and January 2017. Visit Memory House to remember and honor the victims whose lives were lost and those whose lives will never be the same again. With photos of victims and stories of the harm they suffered narrated in their own words, Memory House is an experience bank which you can access for free. Get to feel a deeper connection with victims through the artifacts and personal items that once belonged to those that did not make it to tell their story, and be reminded that these were people who lived and loved among us. To our future leaders, we invite you to join us in restoring our culture of peace and respect for human rights through our wide range of creative and educational programs with schools and youth groups. We invite you to be part of building the Gambia you want. Take a tour of our exhibitions on your own, or let a tour guide take you around. Come and fulfill your duty to remember at Memory House, where we are keeping our past present to promote peace, reconciliation, and healing.
That's a great context to start the conversation with you, Sirra. I would like to ask you about the origin of this project. And I understand that it was a very participatory with the families and with a lot of youth working with you in this project. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Certainly. Thank you very much, Fernando. Thank you very much, everybody, for being here today. The initiative is actually, it's a victim initiative. Memory House was started by ANEKED. It's the African Network Against Extrajudicial Killings and Enforced Disappearances. Our mandate focuses on enforced disappearance and extrajudicial killings. So the founder and executive director of Memory House, or ANEKED, is Nana Jondao. Her father was disappeared in 2013 by the dictatorship regime that we have in the Gambia at that time. And we found out through the Truth Commission that he was arrested. He was actually kidnapped in Senegal, in the neighboring country, and taken by the junglers, the death squad. So this initiative was hers, as she used her story and this family story to really use her pain to make sure that the families that are going through this are not alone, working collectively, and also to make sure that there's justice, and of course that there's remembrance, and putting the victims at the center of the fight and of the search. So with Memory House, we have that initiative where by its victim-led. So all the work is done by the victims, Nanajo being a victim herself. Nanajo is also my first cousin. Her father is my uncle, my dad's younger brother. So it's really for the family, the search that we went through when he disappeared in 2013, the search that we went through, what we went through, we used that experience to initiate this and join hands with other victims who somewhat suffered the same fate, other families, to build Memory House. We started with a pilot, with working all the families together, because memorization is a new initiative. It was a new thing for all of us. I heard about the word memorization, I think, about 5 or 6 years ago when we started this project. I didn't know what it was. So it was we explored it through a pilot project, which we did during in February of 2020, working with the families to really conceptualize it and understand it better ourselves, and use that again. Once we did that, the families were very appreciative and endorsed it, validated the process. Then we moved it and launched it into a permanent exhibition as it stands now in the Gambia.
And I understand the Memory House has also a lot of educational activities with youth and others. So how do you incorporate art or creativity in that education project that is in the Memory House?
So one of the things we've done once we did the first one and you launched the first exhibition, we engaged young people. We started with another pilot that we had young people continuing on the stories, because there's so many other stories. Memory House is a relatively small place where we have stories about 30, 35 families. There's so many more families to stories that needs to be told. And we cannot guarantee that we'll be around to do it. And then we also don't have the capacity. So we engaged young people, we trained them in using really basic photography, using their mobile phones and using the, free online tools to do the photography. And we taught them, trained them on how to interview the victims, how to collect the stories. And these were young people who just graduated high school, or some of them still in university, to continue on the documentation of these stories to make sure that they are engaged as well. So we trained them on the photography is one of the areas where they were trained, storytelling as well, how to use storytelling to really engage with a subject that is very difficult always to handle. The story of enforced disappearances is always a difficult story to engage with. So really art makes it more palatable. Art makes it something that you can engage with. You said it all in your opening statement, that really art is, makes people being able to connect with it. So it's very important that for us that we use that. And also very important and intentional for us in engaging the young people, we're about to launch this project this year, calling it Passing on the Baton, the next generation of enforced disappearances, the children or people of enforced disappearances, really continue on the fight and continue on continuing the documentation, the storytelling, making sure that the families are central in the process, but making sure that also this is preserved and used in 50 years' time, in 100 years' time, the victims will not be around. We will not be around. They will not be around. But it is important that these stories continue to be told in preservation to make sure that this never happens again. The never again mantra really must be maintained through the young people, giving them, passing it on to them, and passing it to the next generation.
That's beautiful. And it's true that through art, perhaps it generates the right mindset to connect with the human tragedy and the sensitivity that is required to understand for those who have not experienced that directly. So I have a last question, Sirra. The Gambia is not a very big country. You say the Memory House is not very big. The country is not very big. Do you think you're having a national impact? I mean, beyond the community where you are, more like in other communities, are you spreading out your impact throughout the country?
Yes, we are. And with the young people and the schools, so we actually have an MOU with the Ministry of Education. So we have basically a license to go to school, which we have been doing. So almost every week we have a group of students coming. We engage with high school students coming in. We engage that, and also the way of doing it, we use art also to engage the young people through poetry, through drawings that the ongoing competition that they can submit poetry, drama, on the context of human rights, beyond the enforced disappearance, but more about human rights in general, really making sure that it's a holistic approach. You're not addressing enforced disappearance in isolation, but addressing the other human rights violations, for example, the right to health, the right to education, which is all really all feed to this enforced disappearances and issue of enforced disappearance. So we use that as well. We use debate, art of speaking with the young people for that. In terms of extending Memory House outside of where we are, which is where in the greater, more close to the capital, we have a traveling exhibition. We have a traveling version. So it's a mobile version of Mobile Memory House where we go to all the regions in the country. We have been around the country at least once in the past 2 years, every region, at least one town of that region. And the idea is for the next few years, we will be continuing on that regional expansion where we go to the every few months, so every quarter we would go to a different region. And when we go to this region, really, our approach recently has been making sure that the victims, especially the women victims, they're the ones taking the lead in the traveling exhibition. So when we identify a community, for example, we will identify a woman victim there, and we will support them for them to exhibit in their region amongst their communities. You have communities where some of these, a lot of families here have testified to the denial of people in the community, whereby people deny these things happen and where we're stigmatized because of what happened to you. So making sure that they are empowered and they're taking on their stories themselves, not just the organization, but the individual victims, especially women victims, taking on the lead in these traveling exhibitions in their communities, very remote communities sometimes. And we are making sure with this that, we get to reach as many Gambians as possible. We've also done it outside the Gambia. And that's another plan that we have. Last year, we had it in Senegal, our neighboring country. We had it in Senegal, the traveling exhibition in Senegal. And we have plans, pending funding, of course, civil society, we know how it works, to really move it around West Africa. Because not in the Gambian context, not only were Gambians victimized, but West African migrants were victimized as well, majority from Ghana and from Nigeria. So the plan is that within the next 2 to 3 years, we would have gone through the sub-region to engage more West Africans. But yes, the plan is, and this is what we've been doing since 2021, actually, moving with the exhibition around the country in a mobile version. We call it a traveling exhibition.
Thank you, Sirra, very much. We're going to travel now to Southeast Asia. The reason why we are traveling so fast is because we want to open the floor at the end for some questions from the audience. It sounds like the art and creativity connects with young people, and it will be lovely to hear people younger than us, to hear whether that's true or not, and if there is a way of connecting with experiences from that may have not lived themselves. So we're going to go to South Asia. Thank you, Yasasmin. And we are going to watch also a short video first, just to contextualize the exhibition called Footprints, and then Yasasmin will help us to understand and provide more information about it.
Enforced disappearances, one of the most harrowing human rights violations, leaves families trapped in endless uncertainty. Loved ones vanish without a trace, leaving behind only questions, pain, and silence. For me, that silence began the day my father disappeared. I was just 12 years old at that time. I found no answers, no justice, only a void. Before that, I had always loved painting and drawing ever since I was a kid. My father was my biggest supporter in my dream of becoming an artist. He would treasure the doodle scraps of paper I gave him like they were something precious. 8 years ago, when my father was violently taken from this very house, I naturally found myself gravitating to my art to try and cope with the trauma. Watercolors, black and white sketches, and hues of blue, red, and gray became a translation of the silent screams trapped inside my soul. In the beginning, I used soft gray pencil for most of the images representing my memories. That's because after an incident like this, my entire life became unsure and blurry. For the more symbolic illustrations, I used bold lines from black brush pen and gray watercolors, bleeding into each other, showing my tears of frustration and anger. As I became more confident in my art and less afraid of my memories, I found hope in bolder colors and larger canvases. Through my art, I told not only my father's story, but also those of countless others like him. My dream of having my art published was realized, although in the absence of my father, through my memoir titled Refusing to Disappear, released in 2022. I think if there's one painting that really captures the essence of my work, it's this one, titled Refusing to Disappear. I painted it live at Defense of Human Rights protest on International Day of the Disappeared 2023. The brushwork, the dripwork, and the colors all represent the torment of a daughter being separated from her father. In this case, me. I'm no longer the little girl in the painting. I'm in university now, pursuing international relations in hopes of one day achieving justice and bringing the perpetrators to account. And of course, I keep painting. My art is deeply, deeply personal. I literally bear emotions I can't even describe onto a canvas. And the idea that everyone gets to see that is a bit scary, but it also gives me hope. Hope that these images I produce can not only become a source of inspiration for fellow victims, but also become something that haunts the perpetrators of this crime till the end of time.
What a beautiful video and testimony. Yasasmin is the regional campaigner for South Asia from Amnesty International. And she's going to explain us how we go from that very deep, beautiful personal testimony to a regional campaign that you've coordinated and organized.
Thank you, Fernando. So that video is, like she said in the video itself, by Ayman Mahmoud, whose father was disappeared. And she does this interesting thing of like she paints whenever she's protesting for the disappeared, whenever she's in the courthouse, when the court cases are continuing. What we've done with the virtual Museum on Enforced Disappearances footprint, some of you must have got the pamphlet as well. We've been circulating it today. We are trying to tell these stories that are scattered everywhere, all across South Asia, in one platform. When we started working on this platform, basically, to start with, Amnesty International has been working on enforced disappearances in South Asia for a long time. And while what we understood was that there was a disconnect. There was a disconnect among the families, among the responses to the authorities within the region. Mostly because, like that was mentioned in the previous sessions, morning session as well, we don't have a regional body to campaign to advocate with. And also we have authoritarian regimes who learn from each other and borrow each other's oppressive tools to suppress the community. So why not build a platform where the organizations that are working on enforced disappearances come together and share their lessons learned, share the tools and other forms of resistance that they have used, so that there is one platform to ask for justice in all these countries in the region. So Ayman is one person. We have, I think in the images that we've shared, there's also a photo of a 6-year-old daughter of another person who was disappeared, who has written Baba on the wall. It's wall art, but all of these are various forms of artistic expressions that we're trying to do, trying to show through the museum. There's also, you also mentioned in your introduction, like other forms of artwork, like installations, etc. We wanted to bring objects that belong to the disappeared to have a small exhibition. We couldn't really figure out the logistics. That's why these photographs show that this journalist who was disappeared in 2010, his wife still keeps the last color palette that she hasn't washed. She's still keeping it, holding on to it. These are all the stories that we are collecting for the platform, so that these stories are not forgotten. These stories are not just behind closed doors of their own houses.
And tell me one question. How do you work on the ground with the organizations? I understand there are many countries participating in this platform, right? So how do you go from the intimacy of producing art with a family? How does that work through grassroots organizations, victims? What's the support of that network? I mean, this Congress is ideal to create those networks or strengthen those networks among organizations. So how does that work in your region?
Oh, for sure. So the entire museum is built on the shoulders of all the organizations that are working with us to build it. We have partnered with more than 20 organizations in South Asia, organizations working on the organization Eamon mentioned, Defense of Human Rights is partner as well for the project. These organizations, so some organizations are facing state reprisals, cannot campaign in public, like all the organizations that are working on enforced disappearances in Kashmir in India, all the organizations that worked in Bangladesh till August last year, some of the organizations that are working on Afghanistan. But these organizations can talk to us, can communicate with us, can build connections, share their stories, share those intimate details with us. The platform features stories from all of these countries, thanks to those organizations, and amazingly brave victim families who've partnered with us. That what they're doing is unbelievably powerful, and the stories that they tell us is unbelievably powerful. When we initially started, we conceptualized it much smaller, but the moment we started talking to people, we were overwhelmed by the kind of stories we received. And yeah, that's why we're continuously expanding the platform.
I have a last question on this, Yasasmin. Usually, I mean, I ask about the impact, and I many times think that, you know, the impact that it has on the families and themselves, it's good enough. But usually we need to look at, you know, what is the impact in the region, in those countries that are affected by this. Do you feel, or have you identified something else that the platform has achieved?
Other than bringing the stories out?
Yes.
So giving more of a, not really confidence, but giving more of a support to the organizations that are working in the region, I think is the main thing that we've identified, because like I said, the platform is expanding, but there are organizations, more and more organizations are reaching out, expressing their willingness to be part of the platform, identifying the importance of it. And also the other thing that I realized was the one platform to go to see the magnitude of the issue in South Asia. This is by no means discounting experiences of everybody who has shared the stories here tomorrow, will be sharing tomorrow. But when we talk about enforced disappearances, we do not think of South Asia at first.
Yeah,
that is a fact, yes. That is the main thing about this platform, that we come to forums like this and we talk about it, that we're bringing attention to what is happening in South Asia, or bringing attention to the stories. And this platform is not just for the families as well. This platform, if you go to the platform, you will see journalists can access information from it. Students, researchers, other CSOs, whoever wants information can get information from, can have information from it. And also, it's something for the second generation as well. You mentioned the second generations. I think Aswad earlier mentioned about the people who are dying, who are carrying the original testimonies who are dying. So preserving all of that is again something that we are doing in collaboration with all the people, all the organizations and individuals who partnered and share their stories.
We have the platform here on the screen for everybody to check on the website. We're gonna go to the next session. We might have a little bit more time than we thought, so maybe we can call us back to get other remarks or more questions and answers. But thank you very much, Sirra and Yasasmin. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes, we are going to call to the desk our next panelist from Lebanon and Mexico. That I will stand up unless we can have an extra chair because. So, can we have an extra chair? Those chairs are movable. Yes. Yes. Okay, don't worry. Please. Yeah, just come here. Sit. I can stand up.
Sorry.
No worries. Oh, great. Yeah, now it's working. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, thank you guys. Thank you. So we're gonna go to the next I think this one is working, right? This is working. So we are going to go to the next panel of this session, and as I said, we will have more time to go for additional remarks and questions and answers. But as I said at the beginning, this is going to focus on books, which I think it's also a very. Do you have the Arabic? It's here. Wait. Here in Arabic. No? Is that working? Can you hear? Is it working? Okay. So we have here 4 wonderful representatives from different projects from 2 countries, from Lebanon and from Mexico, and they will explain the different projects that they've done on the countries. Sorry, I just want to make sure that everyone is ready. We are ready now. We are ready? Good. Okay, so we're gonna go now to Lebanon, as I was saying, and we are gonna go with our colleagues. I want to introduce very quickly Wadad Murad, that I think in this forum everyone knows her. She's from the Committee of the Families of the Kidnapped and Disappeared in Lebanon. She's the president, and also Elena Abu Dehen. She is also working with the Committee of the Families of the Kidnapped and the Disappeared, also in Lebanon. And they've produced a beautiful book, which is here. And I think it's available in different languages, in English, French, and Arabic. And it tells a lot of stories. But before we know about the project, I would ask Wadal to read an excerpt of the book of your own story.
شخصية. في الحقيقة لا أعرف وأنا أدون هذه الكلمات كيف صمت، من أين استولدت تلك القوة والقدرة والتحمل، كيف استطعت أن أبقى أماً في يوميات من الجحيم الأشبه بفيلم رعب نحن أبطاله. لم أعد أتذكر كل ما استطعت ابتكاره من ألعاب وأنشطة
gotten so much strength and capacity to resist from that experience. How have I overcome this hell, which sounds and looks like a terror film, and we're the main characters of this film? I can't recall anymore all of the games that allow me to go through this time. I do not know how I have been able to convince children that they do not listen to the noises. The children are called Hassan and Riyad. We have composed songs inspiring ourselves in the bombs dropped on us by the Israeli forces. But whilst we looked how the bombs were dropped and fell on us, and by following the fragments with colors that looked like fireworks, but the game that we repeated most commonly as a daily homework was to train to take both children together and try to go out to the street.
Thank you.
To foresee the moment I would have to start fleeing and running in case things got worse.
I know this book includes the stories of 14 other women that have lost relatives and family members. So why did you choose? Does that work?
It's not working.
Is that working? Can you hear the translation?
Maybe
you have to.
This I did the earphones part. Okay.
Can you hear? Can we check the translation just to make sure that it's working? It's working.
It's the raising the voice is not working.
Can you testing 1 2 3 testing 1 2 3 for the Arabic channel? Is it working the Arabic channel? So maybe it's a problem on this.
Okay.
Is not working. Okay. Technology is not with us today. But going back to the question, thank you for that reading, Wadal. I was saying that the book includes another 14 stories of women like you who have lost family members and relatives. So why did you choose this creative writing as way to express your life and all the issue of the missing and the disappeared in Lebanon? Why did you choose that?
الحقيقة أنا بحب أبدأ بجملة قالت لي إياها رفيقتي الأرجنتينية وهي قد رحلت الآن. قالت وهي كنا نتشارك في تجربة الفقدان، هي في الأرجنتين وأنا في لبنان، أن
Okay, a colleague of mine from Argentina,
والصمت أداة تعذيب.
she actually left us, and we shared the experience of losing dear ones in Argentina and in Lebanon. It's an unspeakable pain. Silence is a torture. In Lebanon, as family members of disappeared people, we have never ever stopped. From the time we actually got together in 1982, we have never stopped fighting, struggling, and asking and demanding the return of our loved ones. And then during the declared peace period, a peace that's not a truthful peace, during that non-truthful peace, we have also demanded our right to get to know the truth since 1990. Going back to your question, we have exercised and used all of the Pacific struggle tools and instruments to get to know where our disappeared loved ones are. We have gone to the different authorities in the Lebanese state, and these authorities do not listen to us, do not respond, and they have just not been up to the responsibilities. And we decided that given that they are not listening to us, let's write what we have to say. Maybe they will read us. And that's how the idea came about, to write down these stories. I can only just address myself to my dear friend Noor Jani, the director of programs at the International Center of Transitions. I'm not making any ads here. When I actually talked to her about the idea that we could actually write down these stories, if there was a possibility to get some funding to implement this idea, she was very much in favor of that idea of ours. And we discussed the topic very quickly, and we actually defined some master lines in order to start this experience. And women, I mean, most of the family members of disappeared people are women, not only Lebanon. I believe this is something that happens all over the world. The movements of family members of disappeared people are basically movements led by women. They are women-led movements, and no man should get angry at me, but I have to stress out that most of the disappeared people are men, but most of the family members who are very active in the struggle to get them back are women. And as women, we wanted to know what has been the destiny of these men who have been kidnapped by other men. And we got the answer very quickly. And we chose a woman from each region in Lebanon. We have not made any distinctions between women or between community groups in Lebanon. We have chosen women who are wives, sisters, or mothers of the disappeared people. And we held a creative writing workshop, and that creative writing workshop was held in different sessions for 2 months. And then the truth is that the experience was very, very successful and very, very useful. Not only in terms of the publishing of this book, which I call an elegant book. I believe it's a very elegant book, both in terms of its content and also in terms of the quality of the paper, the printing, and the quality of the drawings. We have 15 stories, and each story has its own it has its own drawings. Each story has a drawing made by an artist. And this book, which was originally written in Arabic, has been published at the same time in English and in French as well.
But I want to go first to ask Elena. Elena is a young activist who committed herself and her time and her talent to work with the Committee of the Families of the Kidnapped and the Disappeared in Lebanon, and contributed to digitalize the archives and to participate in many workshops. And then I want to ask you, Elena, how did you get inspired to get engaged in this issue? What makes you, was it the art? What makes you to get yourself an activist on this topic?
Thank you, Fernando. I'll be answering in Arabic. Okay. أنا بدأت بعمل تطوعي مع لجنة أهالي المخطوفين والمفقودين في لبنان عندما كنت في مرحلة الجامعة. لم أكن أعلم بقضية المفقودين أبداً. لم أكن على اطلاع بالحرب الأهلية في لبنان 15 عاماً من الدمار الذي مر على أهلي وأجدادي على قضية الإخفاء القسري، وهذا بسبب الأنظمة.
I've been working at the Committee of the Families of the Kidnapped and Disappeared in Lebanon, and after 15 years of civil war in Lebanon, that had a deep impact in my family. And of course, I knew about the forced disappearances due to the different regimes that governed Lebanon and who were responsible of what happened in our country. So that my project started to be about the archives, the documentation, to try and convey and express in some way what was in a paper format, to turn it into digital format. And I worked in a project at the university to digitize all of these issues. And then I became an activist. And when I started to work in this project, in this field, I was surprised by the enormous amount of tortures that families had suffered in a non-declared way, in a hidden way. In other words, we, as a young generation, we were highly impacted by all of the things that had happened in our country during the terrible years of the Civil War. It was something that was unnecessary. I mean, to become defenders. And that's why we started a very significant number of activities together with the families. And maybe these families were the most important source of inspiration to be able to see the suffering and the resistance, the resilience, and the insistence to try and find out what the truth was. And this is what acted as a source of inspiration for me. And that's basically the suffering in Lebanon.
Poetry or writing. What do you think is the role of art to motivate or to engage young generations like you? What do you think what is the connection? What does that mean for you?
Yes. بالنسبة لي الفن هي لغة مشتركة، هي لغة جميلة لتجسيد قضايا قد تكون معقدة، لا يمكن لبعض من جيل الشباب أن يفهمها كما هي. الفن يمكن أن يوصل مشاعر معينة قد تساعد في فهم هذه القضايا
a beautiful way to share issues that are very difficult and complicated to express. Maybe they are not understandable in a direct way, and that's why art becomes a bridge to try and understand things that are truly complex and to follow them. It gives you space. It gives space to people for them to participate in these stories from the point of view of art based on creativity and to express on paper their ideas. At the family, at the Committee of the Families, when we carry out creative writing workshops, and there are students coming from schools and universities, in 2023 we started, for example, a number of projects for the documentation of the struggle of families for the past 40 years to try and document the cases of disappeared people. And somehow, university students and school students participate in discussion sessions with us. And it is here where we see what the reaction is. How is our reaction when they get to know about this from very close by? And we realize that they're ready to keep the struggle on. And this reinforces our awareness and our consciousness, the attempt to try and express all of these issues about human rights.
Voy a hacer las preguntas en español y así podemos tener una conversación más fluida. Quiero presentar a Alejandra DÍAZ y a Evelina GUZMÁN, que tienen un proyecto.
I'm going to ask the questions in Spanish, and in this way we can have a very fluent conversation. Let me introduce Alejandra DÍAZ and Evelina GUZMÁN. They have a project entitled Recetarios para la Memoria, Recipes for Memory, or a recipe book for memory. And both of you are part of this project, but maybe Alejandra could tell us about how did this idea come about to link up these recipe books with the enforced disappearances issue, and which has been your creativity source to present this recipe book for memory?
Acá tenemos una linda presentación que irá ilustrando conforme vayamos hablando. Si la pueden pasar en loop, estaría increíble.
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting us. Here we have a presentation line that will illustrate what we will be saying. Please project it on the screen. Before starting with the disappearance and the relationship with the recipe book as a link for resistance, given that we're so far away from Mexico, and with Mexico is a country with very specific cooking traditions. I have to say that in any Mexican home, the kitchen is where the soul of the family is present. That's where we express expectations, opinions, and that's the space in which we recognize each other. And it is here where, in the connection of food with the disappearances context, well, this project started by realizing that the daily activity of eating, which can be overseen, it becomes a constant monitoring of an absence. When a family member disappears, the first thing we wonder is he eating well? Does he have anything to take to his or her mouth? And from here, we had the first idea for this recipe book. The recipe book, the project as such, as you can see on screen, is composed by two books. This first book is the recipe book that was generated in the state of Sinaloa in the north of Mexico, with the community, the fortress restorers. In Mexico, women who are looking for a disappeared family member have grouped together into communities to try and fight together. Now, this first book, the Sinaloa recipe book, started as a result of a number of images created by the ideas. Sarah Gomez, who is from Argentina, Spain, and Mexico, and she has worked in the field of disappearances in Argentina. Clarissa Moura, who actually got her father, whose father disappeared in Argentina, and Daniel Correa, a photojournalist in Mexico. When this book was born, the different colleagues, the different comrades who participated in Sinaloa realized that there was a need to look for their beloved ones in a different way. The second book, the recipe book in Guanajuato, and Melina and myself were part of it, this also came about to try and make visible the problem in Guanajuato. In Guanajuato, Mexico, the authorities said there were no missing people. People left with their girls, women went with their boyfriends, or they went up north, which is a way of saying that they went to the USA to look for a better life. The link between food and missing people and disappearances is the source for this project, Fernando. In addition to recognizing four parents and recognizing ourselves through food, we learn from our mothers who taught us how to cook, but also our mom is connected to her own mom and to our grandmother. And that's why we can say that we meet not only to eat as a survival action, but we also eat to share and to be able to recognize each other. That's how it all came about. It's a beautiful idea. It's a beautiful, beautiful idea. I'd like to ask you, Evelina, how were families moved with this beautiful idea? I understand that each family has a recipe that they choose for the disappeared person because it was the favorite dish of the disappeared person. How do families move, and what's the meaning that should be borne in mind? The whole process of creating the book and the recipe book. I mean, what does it mean for each family? Well, good afternoon, everybody. When Sahara and the group of comrades who came to us as a community, as a group, the intention was to express when in fact most of the cases are long term. The cases are forgotten. Mexico is a country in which criminalization and the non-recognition of forced disappearances is quite common, especially Mexican migrants who disappear in their own countries is a good case. And how With regards to the memory issue, how can we go about not forgetting them? How can they not turn into a forgotten file, which is the case of the authorities? And this tries to change the landscape, because when a family member disappears, what we try to do is, okay, my goal is to find him or her because I love that person. It is a beloved person. And we're only thinking about finding him or her, looking for him or her. And we're not thinking that there are other ways of looking for that person, but also of making that person visible. And as mentioned by my colleague, these missing people are criminalized. We're just trying to show that they had a life. They had siblings, they had a mother, they had children. And to us, not to be forgotten is like saying, you're still with us, you're still here, you're still here even if the family is totally broken up. But also, the recipe book for memory is a connecting link between my missing family member and not forgetting what he liked to eat, what he liked, what his favorite dish was. And this link, this connection through taste, links us up and it connects us. And we turn around and say, what are the other ways not to forget them and to make them visible and to keep on looking for them, especially with regards to cases that have happened a long time ago? We have been struggling for almost 14 years. We're trying to look for justice and truth. How beautiful. The connection with cooking is so beautiful, because cooking involves all senses: taste, memory, smell. It's a beautiful image. The idea of making visible. Do you believe that you have been able to go or make visible beyond what you expected? I know your project has been exhibited in many cities in the USA. It has had an incredible media response. Have you broken up the glass ceilings of the community? I mean, to reach people who were totally alien to the problem until they found the project you have created? Well, I believe so, Fernando. From that point of view, in addition to reliving the pleasure of cooking our missing family member's favorite dish, we also remember how and when he or she disappeared. And I believe so. I believe so because, in addition to remembering not only our missing family member, we also remember his or her siblings, his sisters, his brothers, their mothers, and children who are looking for them. And nowadays, for example, the recipe book is not only a recipe book, it is also a vehicle to feed the memory, to feed the memory. And that allows us to generate, for example, community cooking activities like the one you can see on screen. And that has broken the glass ceiling you have mentioned, because people have participated in these cooking activities, people who have nothing to do with enforced disappearances or missing people. We have been in bookstores and in libraries, and the ceiling has been broken up, both internally and externally. In other words, it's not only a book that invites us to cook our own recipes. And once you have it in your hands and you do it, that's another additional process for the construction of the memory. As Mrs. Adelina has just said, it is also a way of placing our truth. We know who are our missing family members and what they used to do. It could also be a repair instrument, and that breaks up other standards. it meant a lot for the families. Some of them told us how cooking as a community with other colleagues brought some peace to their souls. And broad is always, I mean, peace is always linked to justice. So here we have different ways of communicating in a different manner. Thank you, Alejandra.
I know the book, it's been in the
I'm going to ask a question to Wadad about the impact, and I'm going to switch into English now.
on the primetime TV in a country that, as you've said many times, and I heard you saying, has imposed a self-amnesia on the issue of the disappeared. How do you think this book has broken that resistance to acknowledge the truth about the families of the disappeared? You've been working on this issue for decades. What do you think the book has achieved new?
أنا بدي بحب ضوي على شغلي قبل ما أوصل على جواب لسؤالك المباشر. بدي أقول هيدا الكتاب كان مهم جدا على مستوى السيدات اللواتي شاركنا في الكتابة. يعني
Well, before entering directly, let me tell you beforehand that this book was very, very important for the women who have contributed to it, who have contributed to writing this book. Public opinion and the authorities in Lebanon do not know these people. They do not know these women. They do not know them as writers. However, thanks to these 40 years of struggle, these 40 years of fighting, and the fact that these women have had the courage to express what they have inside, they have had the courage to express their feelings, well, thanks to their capability to express love and joy and to the wish to have a normal life. Well, all of these they have achieved through writing, and this took them to some sort of personal healing, a form of self-help to create an awareness that actually links up to their right to know the destiny of their beloved ones. And this gave them additional power and strength to keep on fighting. Now, with regards to breaking up the ceiling, to breaking up this broken memory, both officially and at the level of society, the book has been very useful. In society, there were many, many, many problems and crises that make society not to remember missing people. It makes society not to remember disappeared people. And this book has placed missing people on the limelight again. And as I've said beforehand, this book has given new life to this issue, and it has put the issue under the spotlight again. And it is the book that has allowed us to get into the universities where the book has been discussed. And also the book has also been discussed in schools, and many associations and entities from civil society have had a dialogue with us through this book, and thanks to this book. And we have an idea for the future to go to private universities and to the Ministry of Education and to go to certain universities and specific faculties to introduce the subject matter, i.e. missing people as a theme.
I thank you.
And this book will be a source for researchers.
إضافة فكرة واحدة أريد إضافتها، أن يعني ظهور يعني إنتاج هذا الكتاب وجاء في وقت وكنا قد استطعنا من انتزاع قانون كرس حق المعرفة، معرفة كل عائلة بمعرفة مصير مفقودها، والنضال مستمر من أجل فرض تطبيق هذا القانون. فهذا الكتاب كان أحد المداخل والوسائل الذي ساعدنا
have presented a law that guarantees that families know the fate of their disappeared loved ones. We are fighting to implement this law, and this book was one of the tools
for all this.
that we use to raise awareness on the need to implement this new law.
The impact of art is also what it makes on the audience. You know what everyone thinks when they read a book, when they cook, when they watch a movie, and what they take with them to their own dinner table, and they say, I saw this today, look at this book, you know what and I think there is a rippling effect there that helps to sensitize the society. We're going to open the floor, and that's why we were rushing sometimes on the questions. But I'll also say that there are some books of the Recetario. There are some books here from Windsmill, sorry, it's difficult to pronounce, of Our Hearts in different languages. The video that we show of Tomorrow We Continue will be available in the ICTJ website next week for everyone to use it freely as well. So I think for those who want to dive more into this, there are opportunities to continue doing that. And I want to open for questions, not only for our colleagues from Mexico, Lebanon, but also from our colleagues from the exhibitions and also our Syrian colleagues from the film. Because of mics and speaks, we need to stay on our places, but you can address the question to whoever you want. So we need this, and there are a few, so I just...
Better? Yes, of course. Thank you very much for this very important panel. I want to congratulate all my colleagues from a Syrian colleague. I'm Syrian myself, my Lebanese colleague that I know, my Mexican colleague, because I went to Mexico City and I learned a lot. I work myself, I'm a graphic designer, and I work since 12 years now on art and culture, on the revolution and the Syrian war. And since 5 years now, we have been focusing on the detention and disappearance question, and we have created this book that has plenty of covering 10 years of detention and disappearance in Syria. Inside of it, there are hundreds of artworks, very relevant, and the English and French versions will appear this year. So I joined this just to say that art and culture have always a great role on preserving memory. As we dad said, it has all the sense. And what was astonishing in the context of Syria and other countries is the mobilization of the society that needs all the time to be supported, because the absence of political will to resolve this problem was always the case. Now we hope with the fall of the Syrian regime, justice will maybe take place, but it has to also depend on those many Syrians initiatives. Can I end only with a sentence of the famous poet Mahmoud Darwish on why we write and we do what we do? I will say it in Arabic, please excuse me. Mahmoud Darwish says, من يكتب حكايته يرث أرض الكلام ويمتلك المعنى تماما. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that intervention.
respected delegates and participants. My name is Ikraj Bhandari. I'm senior advocate from Nepal, and I'm here to speak on behalf of the victims of enforced disappearances. And a lot of peoples were forcibly disappeared by security forces and during Nepal's conflict against absolute monarchy. The comprehensive peace agreement of 2006 included commitments to investigate human rights violations and provide justice and support families. But after and when failure the state of the address, this issue has left families feeling neglected and betrayed. While Nepal signed the International Convention for the protection of all persons from enforced disappearances, it has yet to ratify it. This issue is not just a Nepalese concern, but a global one. And lastly, I call on nations to ratify the International Convention and ensure that such atrocities are never repeated. We need global solidarity in our fight for justice. I extend my gratitude to the organized of the World Congress on Enforced. And lastly, one thing, and enforced justice. And extend my gratitude to the organized of the World Congress enforced the disappearances for giving a platform of the voices of affected families. Thank you very much.
Thank you. There are two questions there.
Bueno, buenas tardes. Yo vengo de México, de Monterrey, Nuevo León, y quiero decirles que para mí la música duele tanto el corazón que la música es una forma.
Good evening. I'm from Mexico, Monterrey, Nuevo León.
Entonces, a las madres buscadoras de México.
And I would like to say that for me, music, the heart suffers so much pain that music is a way to see pain differently. And so the searching mothers from Mexico, several singers or poets have made compositions about them, about their plight, because there's no other way to process the pain. Or you either cry or you sing. We'll have another question. I just wanted to say that there are projects that use music for this exact reason. Unfortunately, we could not include all artistic manifestation, but we have hip hop and rap and all kinds of music. I believe we have some other question.
Sorry, go ahead.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you very much for the panel and for the organization. Brigitte Herremans, I'm from Ghent University, a researcher on the relation between artistic practices and justice in the context of Palestine and the genocide in Palestine and Syria. And I was wondering if also the previous session could comment also on the way how artistic practices often advance what is denied, like how they shed light on, in the Syrian context, which was very often the case, crimes were hidden, were erased, were invisibilized. And it was artists like Khalid Khalifa, Samar Yazbek, others who advanced what the West would rather maybe just shelve under the carpet. So has art, to pose my question, a role also in reversing denialism of crimes? Of course, apparently it does, but in the context of Syria, Lebanon, Mexico, the Gambia also. How has this been the case for enforced disappearance?
It's a great question, and I would suggest that we hear the answer from every country. If art, if I can paraphrase, if art is reverting an official narrative of denial, does it have that power? What do we think? Do you want to start? Evelina, ¿quiere usted empezar? Or our colleagues from Syria, or can you speak from there?
Evelina, would you like to go first?
Ahmed and Mahmoud, if you can speak from your chairs, I believe.
Yeah. I will speak in Arabic, please. Should you know?
Creo que.
Okay. I'm here. I will speak in Arabic, sorry. صراحة يعني بموضوع القضية السورية في كتير أشياء تعلقت يعني ارتبطت بالفن، منها مثلا حالة الاعتقال واختفاء القسري، منها حالة النزوح، ضحايا البحار. يعني بفترة من الفترات مثل ما تفضلتي، يعني نحن بسوريا مع الأسف كان في يعني آخر سنتين بالذات في تهميش بحكم.
For instance, in the case of art, the disappearances, displacement, the victims dead at sea. In Syria, over the past 2 years, there's been a lot of marginalization on this matter, on the Syrian issue, but after the fall of the regime, as a civil society, and we have uncovered the truth on the field through social media. We have opened up prisons. The incidents, the advocacy.
الملكيات في عندنا كثير اشياء راح نكفيها مستقبلا لحتى بنكفي بنوصل لهدفنا. شكرا.
For the regime to be held accountable, and not only that, but we also want to uncover and we still have so much to do to reach our goals. Thank you.
إضافة للي حكاه السيد محمود، أنا فدوى محمود من عائلات من أجل الحرية، ابني وزوجي مختفيين، فعم بحكي عن هاي المسألة. يعني الشيء اللي كمان عن عمليات الإخفاء القسري، كتير في اشياء انعملت مرتبطة بالفن. هو عملنا كتير معارض لمعتقلين ومخفيين، عملنا مسرح. يعني أنا من
People who are
الناس
missing with regards to forced disappearances, there are many things that have been done from the artistic perspective. We have, for instance, developed exhibitions, theater plays. I performed on a play on disappearances and forced disappearances.
وبالمآسي اللي كانت يتعرضوا لها المعتقلين.
We did not have a lot of room to maneuver, and yet we could do a lot of things. We have even reached European countries and the US to hold exhibitions on the plight of these detainees. And the best proof of that are the images from Kaiser that were divulged over the world. And we don't really know what we're going to do in the future, but I'm sure we'll have a lot to do. Thank you.
And this is definitely common everywhere. In Gambia, we actually had the president on national TV suggesting that some of the people who the government was being accused of disappearing actually went on irregular migration and have migrated without their families knowing. We had newspapers being shut down, so there was no reporting. And when this, of course, when it's reported, people are, we had Aisha in her presentation earlier talking about how they were not allowed to talk about their loved ones. So of course the art helps in bringing this thing out, not only bringing it out, the stories, making it real, and making it known. So when we have people visiting Memory House coming in, Gambians who will live through the oppressive 22 years, coming there and say that, oh, I never knew this. I didn't know these stories. I didn't know these ones exist. And also making sure that some of the victims in some areas don't know what is happening in the other areas. For example, our traveling exhibition went to one of the areas and the people there stated, we thought we were the only victims. So really taking this out there, making it public, making sure not just the general public, but victims themselves, knowing that they're not alone, they're not the only ones. And through the exhibitions and the presentation, this was made known. And for me, the best part is really keeping it alive, the preservative aspect of art, keeping it alive for generations to come. So yes, the revisionist stories. And that is one of the reasons actually why we set up Memory House, making sure that the victims, we made sure that even the government did not fund any part of it so that we had the liberty to do whatever we want. That was intentional on our part, that we didn't seek funding from the government, making sure that the victims had the liberty to say their stories their way without any interference or any other change. And also making sure that we're managing that revisionism in the future. When there's another story, there's always this alternate story. We also have Memory House online as a virtual exhibition. It's called the duty2remember.org. So even if we are shut down in country, we'll be online virtually. And this has been the first one as well. So definitely it makes it a lot, and technology, using technology to amplify those voices makes it even more, stronger and more powerful.
Yeah, because we haven't spoken about digital art, and that's another conversation that can be global and everlasting. Yasasmin, do you want to make any reflections about your work? We heard about Nepal, which is not well known many times, as you said, and also as concluding also remarks that we might have another a little bit of time for another question, but the floor is yours.
Thank you. Yes, to add to everyone that has spoken, I was actually asking my colleague Aisha over there whether she would like to talk about what their recent project of the organization is doing as well. They're also reaching out to young children of, I'm taking the liberty to speak, Aisha, sorry, to young children of the families of the disappeared, and the art that we've seen is heartbreaking. Some of the ways that they express themselves, like, I can't remember who said what words can't express, art can. And like you said, there are so many platforms even within South Asia. The artists are working on a digital art. There are like Instagram accounts dedicated to enforced disappearances in South Asia. The attempt is, again, like I said, because it's such an issue that we don't relate to South Asia much about, like what Mr. Bandari said. He's just one person, but there are hundreds of thousands of them in the region whose voices are never heard. The world doesn't even know that there are people out there in South Asia who are going through this. And art helps a lot in bringing those voices out into the main discourse so that we can go and dig deep and get the facts, get the other details out.
Thank you, Yasasmin. Our colleagues Alejandra, Evelina, su proyecto, como decíamos antes, puede romper las historias de negación, el silencio oficial, hasta dónde pueden llegar, y cualquier otra cosa que quieran expresar sobre eso.
As we were saying earlier, your project, can it break up the stories of denial, of official silence? Is there anything else you'd like to express about your project? Evelina, please.
Envuelven el contexto de desapariciones en territorio mexicano, ¿no? Y justamente algo
Above all, on all the paradigms that surround the context of disappearances on magical territory. And precisely what drives these sources of inspiration, I believe all panelists have reached the same conclusion, that what inspiration drives us? What is it that through art and presenting these little details, such as the ones from our colleagues, that brings us back to the space that we occupy, to the people that at one point were disappeared, because they did not disappear by themselves, they were disappeared. And who does the disappearing? Well, in the case of Mexico, throughout the years, they've closed the doors in our faces when we are looking for, and through art, we have realized that there are other ways of bringing them up and how to acknowledging that the state has been and is failed. Alejandra, please.
Estos proyectos son colaborativos y que son formados por varias familias y
I
varios
will
colectivos de las
use
cuales
my
varias compañeras
intervention
están acá. Y me gustaría en honor
to
a esas compañeras que
posit the
no
fact that
pudieron
these are
venir y
collaborative
también
projects,
en honor a los demás familiares que
that
hemos
they're made
conocido en
by
este
several
congreso.
families and communities, out of which some
Leen
of the
sus
members are
nombres.
here, and I would like to
En este
honor the
recetario
colleagues that could
cocinaron
not be here
Carmen,
and to honor other family members that we've made. Read out their names,
Carmen,
because
Felisa,
in this recipe we
Graciela,
had as cooks
María de la Luz, María de Lourdes, Cecilia, Luz Nayeli, Rosalina, Marta
Carmen,
Cecilia,
Felisa,
María Cristina,
Graciela,
Alicia, Albina,
María de la Luz,
Sonia, Verónica,
María de
Gracia,
Lourdes, Cecilia, Luz Nageli,
Juana,
Rosalina,
María de los Ángeles,
Marta Cecilia,
Consolación, Evelina,
María
Gisela,
Cristina, Alicia,
María
Balbina,
Lidia,
Sonia,
Graciela,
Verónica,
Carmen, María
Engracia,
Guadalupe, María Antonia,
Juana,
María
María de los
Guadalupe,
Ángeles,
María Guadalupe,
Consolación,
Reina,
Evelina,
Lina, Ángeles, María
Gisela,
Dolores,
María Lidia,
Gloria,
Graciela,
Marcelina,
Carmen, María
Juana,
Guadalupe, María
Gabriela,
Antonia, María
Estela,
Guadalupe, different one,
Ángeles, Viviana,
Reina,
Ana
Lina,
Mendoza,
Ángeles, María
Carla,
Dolores,
Sandra
Gloria,
Cecilia,
Marcelina,
Viviana, María
Juana,
Guadalupe,
Mariela,
Sara Leticia,
Estela,
Verónica,
Ángeles,
Yadira,
Viviana, Ana
Rosaelia,
Mendoza,
Carmen,
Carla,
Cecilia,
Sandra Cecilia,
Isis,
Liliana,
María Guadalupe,
María Guadalupe,
Patricia
Sara
Janet,
Leticia,
Rosalba,
Verónica,
María
Yadira,
Guadalupe,
Rosaelia,
Alma Lilia,
Carmen,
Fabiola,
Cecilia,
María Janet,
Isis, María
Ángeles,
Guadalupe,
Yolanda,
Patricia
Alejandra,
Janet,
Irene,
Rosalba, María
Remedios,
Guadalupe,
Elvira,
Alma Lilia,
Joa,
Fabiola,
Irene,
María Janet,
Blanca,
Ángeles,
Edith,
Yolanda, Alejandra,
Olimpia,
Irene,
Montserrat,
Remedios,
María Elena,
Elvira,
Vanessa,
Joa,
Soledad y
Irene,
Mirna Medina.
Blanca,
Muchas gracias.
Edith, Olimpia, Montserrat, Alicia, María Elena, Vanessa, Soledad,
Muy bonito
and
homenaje
Mirna
a todas las
Medina. Thank you
compañeras.
very much.
Estaba detrás de cada nombre una tragedia y detrás de cada nombre una historia de resiliencia y de lucha. Muy bonito, gracias por eso.
That was a beautiful homage to all your colleagues.
Round of
I thought a
applause.
tragedy behind every
Closing
name
remarks,
and a
please.
story of resilience and
then,
struggle. That was
what
lovely.
you
Thank
think
you.
This project will, where this project will go? What is the limit of this book? What you are planning to do more? You are planning to do what? Any concluding remarks about this type of projects, of what you have learned that you want to share with us?
مشروع الكتاب هو يمكن أن يكون مقدمة لإعادة التجربة مع 15 شاب ورجل حتى يعني
An introduction.
نترك مساحة للشباب
Similar experience, but this time with 15 young people of young boys, of young men. To express themselves through writing on the matter of the disappeared, of the war, especially since it's going to be 50 years since the start of the civil war. for the month of April, we would have had 50 years since the Lebanese Civil War. And up until this point, the issue of the disappearances hasn't been solved, as if the war was continuing at different levels. Our hope is that the proper implementation of laws, because that shall contribute to our meaning and the opinion of everyone, in case that laws are rightfully applied for these disappeared. This will be the mandatory introduction for true and lasting peace. Meaning that we will also allow men to write, so that we may not be accused of discriminating. And thus, society as a whole will have participated in uncovering its own feelings. The true history of Lebanon. And not just this book, The Windmills of Our Hearts, but let this book be a source for Lebanon's recent history. As there has been attempts to silence this issue, to get this, see this law through, as if there had never been a war, there had never been disappearances, as if there's 17,000 disappearances in Lebanon that are a significant percentage, to do as if their families did not exist. That it allows governments to forget about this matter. Throughout efforts such as this book or films, we also have a song dedicated to the families of all the disappeared people, all the kidnapped in the Arab countries and around the world.
Of the younger generation, what would you get from as a recommendation for the future? For as an activist, as a young person committed to this cause, what is your message?
Well, the thing is that we must get in schools, in universities, to take the issue of the disappearances there, and make that this issue is enmeshed in the school curriculum. Because in the Arab world, we don't really have the tools to talk about this matter. We can use art, as is the case with this book, documenting the stories of ladies that maybe will not be reflected in Lebanese history. And this book will be a source for the future to document, and thus go in schools, in universities. So that's an attempt to change the future.
Thank you very much. Well, Yasasmin, go ahead.
Sorry, 30 seconds. I forgot to tell earlier, we're trying to informally get families of the disappeared to appear for a photograph tomorrow around 4:30, right outside the the photo walls near the lobby. If you can spread the word and be there, it'll be really good to have South-to-South conversations, South-to-South solidarity, any solidarity really, but I'm saying South-to-South. Sorry.
Thank you, thank you. That's noted. So please remember for tomorrow. I'm so sorry. There are people who have questions. I'm sorry. We are out of time. There is the reception. There is another day that we can continue talking, discussing. Just feel free to approach any of our wonderful panelists and to speak about their projects. And I ask you for an applause to all of them. And thank you for your response.